All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start the honors review. Um, this is all kind of grouped together, so when you approach this right now, you need to look first. Do you have a shortcut? Then if it's not a shortcut, is it right? So then you can use SOHCAHTOA, Pythagorean theorem, and if it's not right, then if it's not a right triangle, then you can use law of sine or law of cosine. So I'm going to start with number one, and I'm going to fill in my information. And the first thing that I notice from there is I don't know if it's a right triangle. So I have to go and assume it's not a right triangle. So since there are no cousins, I'm going to use law of cosine. And since there's no angle given to me, I'm going to go with the smallest one first. So I'll be using the formula with the a's on the end. And that means I'll be finding big A first. So it goes a squared and then equals b squared plus c squared. And then minus 2 times those. And I told you in your notes, put this in parentheses. You got to protect it. Now to start solving for A, I got to clean it up. So I'm going to square everything. And then as far as the parentheses go, I can still clean up the 2 times 12 times 10. And then my next step is just something that Mrs. Lawson prefers. I don't like subtraction, so I add the opposite. And I'm also going to add 144 and 200. Whoops. And now I'm ready to start solving for big A. So I'm going to do that. All right, so the first thing to do to get A by itself, the first thing I'm going to move is the thing furthest away from it, which is the 244. And when I do that, I get negative 180. And then, actually, I don't need the parentheses anymore because I'm not protecting it from anything. And next thing to move, the next furthest thing away from A is negative 240, so I'm going to divide. And when I divide those, I get 0.75. And the last step to get A by itself is inverse cosine. And at this point, if you've not checked, I would press the mode button on your calculator, make sure degree is highlighted and not radian. But in the end, I get A to be 41. And as it turns out, I now have a pair of cousins, and I compare it up with the next smallest side, which is C. So I'll do 8 with sine of 41 and 10 with sine of C and go into my cross products. So 10 times sine of 41 is about 6.561. I'm putting more decimals so I can be more accurate. And that means 8 times sine of C should also be about 6.561. So to get C by itself, I have to move the sign and the 8. So I'm going to first move the 8 through division. When I do that, I get about 0.82. And the last step to get sine by itself is inverse sine. So when you take the inverse sine of your decimal, you'll see that C is about 55. And now that I know C, I can go for B, and that's 84. And again, we talked about is the smallest angle with the smallest side. It is. It is the largest angle with the largest side. And it is. So that's a good way to get an idea if you're right or wrong. All right, number two. I'm going to fill in my information. And as I start to fill it in, I notice 90/60. Well, that means my other angle is 30, and I have got a shortcut. If you want to fill in the picture, you can. Just make sure that when you do that, that you make angle A your right angle. Okay, don't automatically assume that C is going to be the right angle based on how we've drawn things in the past. But since I know the smallest side is opposite to the smallest angle, etc., I know that I have my small, my medium, and my large side, and I can fill it in down here. So if my large side is 2 square root of 3, normally to go from the small to the large side, I double it. So to go back, I'm going to take 2 square root of 3 and cut it in half, or just divide it by 2, which just makes it square root of 3. And then to go from my small to my medium size, I just add a square root of 3. So if this is my small side, and now I add a square root of 3, I can clean it up to the square root of 9, which is 3. And now I can just take my sides and fill them in. Okay? All right, let's go for the next one. Again, I'm going to fill in my information. And there we go again, 60, 90. I got another shortcut. So again, if you want to fill this in, that's fine. But here, angle C is your right angle. So just be careful. And you can put A and B however you want. That doesn't matter. But again, I know that the short side is with 30, medium, large. And so I'm going to set it up. And as it turns out, I know the medium side. And I would like to have a square root of 3 to take away, but there's not. So that's where we said the small side is just the medium side with the square root of 3 over 3. And that one's done. And then to go to the large side, I'm just going to double it. But the only thing that gets doubled is the 16. So it's 32 square root of 3 over 3. And I can fill that in. Okay? All right, let's go to number 4. So setting this one up, looking at the angles, I don't have a box, and you don't have a box because you only have to find C. So I'm going to go put stuff in my picture. B is my 90. It doesn't matter where I put A and C, they can be interchanged, but I do know that little a is 24, so for me that's there. And big A is 63, and that I have to find little c. So based on this, my given angle, I've got opposite and adjacent, so I'll be using tangent, TOA. So it goes tangent with the angle and then opposite over adjacent, which I'll put an X here now. And then I can go into cross products. 24 times 1 is 24. Tangent of 63 times X should be 24. And now to get X by itself, I'm just going to divide by tangent of 63. And so on the calculator, I want to type in 24 divided by tangent 63. And I'm done, and I get about 12.2. All right, so that's the first page. Let's move on. All right, on the next page, number 5, again, I'm going to take my information, fill it in. And I already start to notice that I've got another shortcut. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in my missing angle, and that this is L, L, H. So I'm going to write that off to the side. And if you want to fill in your picture, you can. Just in this one, B is your right angle, so be careful. But I know the hypotenuse, it's 20. And since there's not just the square root of 2 to take away, I can make my leg 20 with square root of 2 over 2. And then I could take the 20 and divide it by 2 and make it 10. And I'm just going to write it 1, even though it goes for both of them. And that's fast. That's the shortcut. You get it done in seconds rather than in a couple of minutes using sine, cosine, tangent. Next one, no box, nothing to fill in. I guess you could make a box if you really wanted to. But I see immediately the A is a right angle. So I'll put B and C in other places. And I also see that little b is 11 and little c is 7. And that I have to find big B. So based on the angle, I have opposite, adjacent, which tells me I can again use tangent. So tangent of my angle, we'll call it x, equals opposite over adjacent. And to get x by itself, to undo tangent, I inverse it, and I inverse it. So when I type that into my calculator, I get, and round it, 58 degrees. All right, the next problem, 7, 8, um, are word problems. So it says a chairlift on a ski slope has an angle of elevation of 28 degrees. Remember, angle of elevation is when you're standing on the ground, on the lower level, and you look straight ahead and you look up. That's the angle that's formed. And it covers a total distance of 4,640 feet. So here's going to be my chairlift. The ski lift covers a distance of 4,640. The hypotenuse is the path that the chair travels. Here's my angle of elevation then, because it matches this picture. What's the vertical height? How tall is it? That's what I would be looking for. So again, based on this angle, I've got opposite, hypotenuse, that says I should use sine. So sine of my angle, and then opposite over hypotenuse. And the nice thing about this one is once I type it into my calculator, I'm done, because x times 1 is x, and sine of 28 times 4,640 rounded gives me 2,178 because it says to the nearest foot. So I'm going to ignore that 0.3 at the end. All right, 8 goes with the picture at the right. It is a ladder up against a chimney and it's forming a right angle. And they suggest that when you place the ladder, it's placed at a 75-degree angle. So all of my pictures are just going to be triangles that match that. All right, so 8A, your smallest extension ladder has a maximum length of 17 feet. So the longest that this ladder can actually reach is 17 feet. How high does the ladder safely reach on a vertical wall? This is what I'm looking for. So based on this angle, I have opposite and hypotenuse. There goes sine. So sine of my angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. This is a great cross product because x times 1 is x, and that's the same as sine of 75 times 17. And when I type that into my calculator, I get about 16.4. That's how high the ladder needs to be. All right, 8B, another same triangle. So here we go. You place the base of the ladder 3 feet from the chimney, so that's down here. And how many feet long should the ladder be? There's my ladder. So again, based on this angle, I got adjacent and hypotenuse, so that's cosine. So cosine of my angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Now we go to cross products. 3 times 1 is 3. That should be the same as cosine of 75 times x. So my only step to get x by itself is divide by cosine 75. So when I'm done typing this into my calculator, we get x to be about 11.6. All right, let's go to 8C now. To reach the top of the chimney, you need a ladder that reaches 30 feet high. So that means that 30 feet high. The ladder doesn't need to be 30 feet. The ladder needs to reach 30 feet high. So there's my angle. How many feet long should the ladder be? Let's look. So again, based on my picture, I've got opposite and hypotenuse. So I'm back to sine. Cross products. 30 times 1 is 30, and that means sine of 75 times x is also 30. So the final step to get x by itself is divide by sine of 75. So that means x is about 31. All right, there we go. That is number 8. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and do number 9. Number 9, I've got that box. I want to fill it in. And as soon as I fill that in, there's a shortcut, 45, 45, 90. If you want to fill in the picture, you can. C would be here because it's the right angle, and you can interchange A and B. But I don't need to because I know that this is a leg, this is a leg, and this is a hypotenuse. So if you want to write it this way, if I know that one leg is 8, then the other leg is 8, so A is 8, and the hypotenuse is just 8 square root of 2, which is C. And there is number 9. All right, I think I'm going to stop the video here, and I'm going to finish 10, 11, and 12 on a different video. All right?